you guys come to Easton? And then that's when I open it up. So this is fantastic that you all are here. The idea is that you share. This is a participation type of a class. I want to know what you're thinking, because if you have a question about something or you have a take on something, I guarantee you somebody else sitting in the class probably has that same thought. So that's why we want you to share, ask questions, and we'll all learn a lot more, because every single class that I go into, I am always very purposeful about learning something that I don't know. There is always something new to learn, always something new to learn. So today, what we're going to be talking about is CMAs and net to sellers. Now, I'll say just in some of the audience members that I see here, this may be very elementary, very basic, but it's always good to go back to the basics, always, because here's what I'm going to tell you, is that the way that I do things, I assure you, are different than the way other people do them. This is my 28th year of selling full time, and so this goes back 28 years is what I'm telling you. So mine is going to be as basic, but I'm going to share with you some of the things that I do that I think makes it basic for the client is very good, because I think a lot of times we really can get lost in the language of real estate that we're doing every single day. And when you're sitting at the kitchen table of a seller, they don't have that same lingo. This is the first time that they're selling a home. So the more basic that you can be and elementary that you can be, the better, right? Did you sign this? So that's what we're going to be working on. So today, I want to go around the room. I know maybe you guys are like, oh my gosh, again, but I just want to, because I need to know who my audience is too. I want you to go around the room. I want you to tell me your name, and this is for everybody else too, how long you've been in the business, and share one thing about real estate that you're like, man, I had no idea that this is what I was getting myself into, right? Something that's really surprising to you about real estate. So who's going to start? Nicole's going to.
So Nicole Ware, technically I've been in the business for a year, but I'm only on my second transaction, so I didn't much go. What surprised me about real estate, don't learn in the state, is that it's really a full-time agent business. I got into it with the intention of being and staying part-time for investment purposes, but I learned it's really a full-time business.
Great. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Priscilla?
Hi, I'm Priscilla Moore. I've been in the business about a little bit over a year now. I guess one thing that surprised me about real estate is that I don't think I ever learn enough. Like every single day you're learning something new and you have to, evolve the changes of it.
So true. There's always something to learn. That's why we should be in classes. I think we should be in classes every day, right? James?
James Sloan, a little over 2 years. I guess something that surprised me is the wide scale of things we can experience on a day-to-day basis from client to client. I didn't think that it was going to be smooth sailing getting into it, but I wasn't expecting how wide situations can get.
Yeah, from transaction to transaction to people. Yeah, then you throw people in the mix of that. Yeah. Ellen?
Belen Rodriguez. I've been in the business for 4 years. Everything surprises me about real estate. I started as a part-time agent, slowly transitioned into a full-time agent. It's hard to do it part-time. As a full-time agent, you're always learning, constantly learning, which is why it made it so hard for me to stay part-time and do both and growth both and give 100% of my time to them. So
is it different now that you've made that transition?
it's easier for
Okay.
sure. We have to constantly feed ourselves and educate ourselves. So yeah, it's different.
I love that. I love that. So you guys hearing that, those of you that are not yet transitioned, and here's the other thing too, you owe it to your clients, right? To be in this business full time. I think, I think it's not that you can't do it. That's not what I'm saying, but I think that if real estate is really what you want to do. You're hearing it from Bellen that's done it, right? The idea of being full-time really is. Rachel knows that too, right?
Rachel Hall. 3 weeks officially here in Columbus, but I guess what surprises me, I don't feel like I get too surprised anymore. I've been in the industry for 12 years. But things that I've learned since I'm on the other side is I've definitely been trying to practice what I preach and showing up to any and all trainings that I can. Even if I feel like I've heard it or done it, I learned something. I think staying after, if you're able to, is huge because you get to network and ask questions from people that you hear from the class that you're like, oh, I need to pick their brain. And then something in week 3 I'm experiencing that I hope we have a class on soon is called time blocking. Yeah, today was like one of those days where I'm like, okay, what am I doing today? Where I didn't have my day really time blocked. And so I kind of felt like I was just winging it and I didn't really like that. So one of my goals is just gonna be to time block, so, yeah.
And I love it that you say, let's do a class on that. I'll do a class on
Okay.
that. So you guys, this too is where we learn this. It's like, if you guys have anything that you're thinking, gosh, I want to get better at, first of all, what you should do is teach it, right? That's what they tell us. But if you guys have ideas for classes that you want to do, let's do it. Let us know. We will create and put something together to create a class around that. Yeah.
Alexa Beard, I've been licensed for about a little over 7 months now. To agree with Priscilla, you learn something new every minute of every day. To James' point, there's no, similar situation. Maybe similar, maybe, but exact, absolutely not. Everyone is different. You have to adjust your personality to different clients or different people that you're meeting, so it really is, every day is different, and that is absolutely true in real estate, I feel.
Be on a swivel, right? You gotta be ready. You know, we, as individuals, any guess as to how many decisions we make or are before us each and every day? 35,000. 35,000. I'm reading a book, or just finished the book. Think Ahead. It's a great book. It gives you 7 ideas of things to really get straight in your life, and it talks about the decisions that we have to make and how different they are, the things that we're doing.
Think ahead.
Think Ahead. Craig Groeschel is the author. Got a Christian bent on it, I'll just tell you that.
Todd Bollenbacher, 7, maybe 8 years now. I guess my first surprise in getting in glamorous real estate was getting in the poor condition buildings and finding yourself like having to, we'll go through some interesting situations and structures.
Certainly. And Todd, you do a lot of commercial.
Yeah,
Right?
especially it started out in commercial too. The first glamorous commercial building fixing I think we ran into a leaking pipe when we got in the building, had to turn off the water and get
Yeah,
that taken
yeah, what do you do with stuff like that, right? I mean, that's a great learning opportunity.
Yeah.
Glad you're here.
Hi, Siobhan Blake. I'm coming up on my 5th anniversary. I think what has surprised me that I've learned is how many different avenues you can go with a career in real estate, whether it be commercial, residential, rehab and investments, or even inside residential. Do you want to work with downsizing seniors or first? Just so many different options, and I've realized and learned that I have no interest in commercial real estate at all.
Sometimes it's the elimination of that,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Again, I think, Siobhan, I think that is a great class too, to really dive into. Let's look at, what do you like to do? Because that's what you need to focus on, right?
What you good at?
What are you good at? What do you have a passion for already that's built in that you would do no matter what, if you ever got paid or didn't get paid to do it, you still have a passion to do it?
Amanda Carter, and the most surprising thing is that I thought I was on the path to organization until I got in here and realized how unorganized I was. So just seeing how important it is, like, you know, going back to the time blocking, like literally. I'm not an every other hour of the day person, but for this, I need to be, so I can dedicate the hours that I need to dedicate to certain things, so I didn't realize how important that was going to be, and it is very important.
Sounds like another attendee of the class if we do a class, huh? Good. Cindy?
Hi, Cindy Cook. I've been in the business for about a year. I have a full-time job, so it's hard to find time to balance both of them. And hardest thing that I have trouble with is remembering it. And there's so much to remember, so much to learn. There is a lot. Of time block.
I think what helps with the remembering too, again, this goes and speaks to being a full-time, when that's what you're doing. And you're not, I told Cindy when I very first met, is it okay if I say what you do? So she works in a used car sales office, and I said, oh my gosh, you're so close to what we do already, at least that's what people think, right?
And that's what I thought.
Right, that's what you thought too, but not, right? So totally different.
So different.
Yeah, so you're the finance person and does the lines and all that. Yeah, and sells. So again, that leads to kind of what you're doing here.
Correct.
Right.
I'm Dre Singleton. Like her, I work a 50-hour job. And I think honestly, I actually went out to YouTube, but kind of that wall of like time blocking, how do I figure this out? I like doing myself. Kind of like what she said. I wasn't really expecting this, trying to manage people.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All that. All right, you guys, just because of the conversation here, you guys already learned something. If nothing else, it's that people are struggling with the same thing, right? So I'm telling you right now, I will teach a class on time blocking, and I'll look at my calendar and see when we can do it here in the next couple of weeks, okay?
We wanna know what Jill Campbell does every day.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, that's something that I worry about, is like, wait a minute, you gotta shadow me, it's like, no, wait a minute.
We're gonna pick up my first script, we're gonna go.
Hey, listen, I did have an agent shadow me, and I had a ring. We had gone to a builder open in Delaware, and he actually rode with me. I said, you wanna ride with me? I said, people don't ride with us today like they used to. Liability and things like that, but he actually rode with me. And when we were out there, I got the call that my ring was ready, and it just so happened to be at Polaris that we were driving by, and I said to this guy, I said, all right, you're gonna get, this is real deal. They're like, this is what I do during the day. I said, my ring's ready, we're gonna swing into Polaris, and I'm gonna go in. And I said, you wanna go with me? And he went in with me because I took that opportunity, even though I was doing something of personal nature, to have a real estate conversation. And he was like, seriously, that's what, I said, yes. I said, everything that you're doing, I don't care if you're swinging in and picking up a ring or whatever, figure out a way to have a real estate conversation with people. I'm gonna tell you guys, I've been doing this for a long time, and I have not always done that. I've started doing that. And it is amazing how people will remember. Of course, you probably have to frequent the jewelry store a little more often than what I do to have that be something that would grow. But when I think about the places that I am on a continual basis, people know who I am. And because I have those conversations, they know what I do, right? So it's practicing that. Miss Blair.
Okay, Blair Bishop, Alan Title. Gosh, like, so whatever's a surprise about the real estate industry.
Yeah, well, you've been living it your whole life, right? Kind of
I
like me.
have, I've been at it, looking for FSBOs when I was a kid since third grade.
Mhm.
My mom's Dayla, so.
You didn't know that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes, surprise. Let's see. Gosh, everything's a surprise. You know what? I'm gonna say this because I want you all to hold yourselves accountable and whatnot, but I'm surprised when people don't follow up with what they need to do to get their job done. So, and I'm surprised when people don't have a system for a calendar. So I really encourage everyone to have it, get your system, figure out your system and what works for you, because it will really help your business. Whether it's a phone calendar or a paper calendar, make sure you're staying organized so that you look like a professional to your clients. That's, that's what surprises me.
That's good. That's very good. And it's, I'll tell you, Google Calendar changed my life, not just from business, but from a personal perspective. It's like I put everything. In fact, I think I won an award once for having the most color-coded calendar of the office. But I put everything on there. In fact, before I answer any questions for everybody's like, hey, can you get together? Okay, wait, I need to check my calendar. And then what's so great, especially when you're working with clients, is you can send them an invitation and it goes right to them and then goes on their calendar too. So it's really powerful. So, but that is a whole nother class, right? That's a whole nother class. So let's dive into this because we're going to talk about mastering CMAs and net to sellers. And again, my introduction to this is I'm just sharing you the way that I do it. That does not mean that that is the only way to do CMAs. In fact, some of you may be like, gosh, there's no bells and whistles here. Listen, I'm all about getting the information, right? And I am trying to be an investigator, right? I'm trying to figure out the story in coming up with the story of a specific property, okay? And so the one that I'm using as an example is something literally, we're going to use this as our training today. This came as a conversation that I had with somebody at church on Sunday. Literally, what is today? Tuesday. Sunday, I had this conversation and the parents came up to me and said, hey, Courtney is thinking that she's going to sell her house and she thinks that she has a buyer for it. And I said, great. I'm thinking, great. And I said, well, why don't you let me talk to Courtney about values and stuff, because values have changed, because I put Courtney in that house in 2019. Okay. And so they came and said, hey, we think that we even have a buyer for it. And I said, okay, whoa. I said, wait. I said, we just got to make sure where valuation is so that she doesn't leave any money on the table. So it's all about this conversations that you're having to pique people's interest, right? As to saying, okay, well, maybe we just don't want to sell it, right? Now, the story here is Courtney is living out of state, right? So she's in Virginia. And I had said on Sunday to the parents, I said, just because she is there doesn't mean we can't do things here. We can do everything virtual. I can send documents electronically. We can do all that stuff. There's no problem in that. That was a huge relief to them. They didn't even think that that was an option, right? Again, Courtney bought this house in 2019. It's her first house. She's young. I think she just is turning 30, right? So she's never sold property before. That's why it's important that you know something about that, as opposed to, and I don't know that her parents are in any different situation because they've been in their house for almost 40 years. They've not sold a property in this market either, right? So I know that everything that I'm saying is really for both of them, because mom and dad have never experienced it either. So I said, well, connect me with Courtney again, and then let's get on each other's calendar. Courtney and I talked yesterday. I sent her several times that I could get together, said bing, 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 pick one. She picked one. I talked with her yesterday. And then I said, and I sent her exactly what I've just copied to you guys, what you guys have copies of, okay? Now, I don't think that it copied so well on what you have, but mine is color coded. This is what I sent her, and I scanned it. And so everything was highlighted for her to see on the scan. Yeah, do you not have OneDrive? Okay, I'll get one for you. Yeah, I set it right up here.
Oh, yeah, you did. I'm so sorry.
So it's a whole stack of stuff. So I'm just saying, you guys have what I walked into that appointment with. And I did this over the phone with Courtney that's in Virginia that I learned about Sunday. Okay. And then after I had this conversation with Courtney, I said to her, you really need to let me see the property. James, are you making a copy?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really need to get into the property and see what all you've done. And again, we talked, I think our conversation was 42 minutes on Monday that I talked to her. Gathered some information, she told me about the property, the things that she'd done. She told me that she has a gal that's staying there with her that's kind of watching out for the house, because she'd been in Virginia for 2 years. Right, which I didn't know, 2 years. And so then it turned into, hey, mom wants to meet you at the house, when can you meet? And it was given, I was given today, I was given Thursday or Friday. And which day did I pick? Today, because I want to talk to him today. I don't want to wait till Friday till maybe that buyer comes back and says, hey, we're ready to do this. Right, and then they make commitments. So I met with her this morning at 10 o'clock, met mom at 10 o'clock. We walked through the house, great property. So this, this is what I love so much about teaching classes. I could have picked any property we could have done, but we have a real live example. I'm going to show you guys how this plays out, right? This is what we do. So, here we go, right? Hopefully this will work like I want it to. This is what our objective is going to be. We're going to learn how to create an accurate and compelling CMA. I don't know how compelling my CMA was, but it conveys the information. Understanding strategies and educate the sellers on pricing their home correctly. Any kind of information that you're getting, remember, I learned and I know mom and dad haven't even sold a house. So they don't have any idea what they're doing in pricing, in the expectations of showing a property, what that looks like. We're gonna master the net to seller sheet to set realistic expectations. I'm gonna tell you guys, title is my background. That's where I came from. And so I have always taken great pride in getting that net to seller as close as I can. In fact, I'm the agent at closing. And when I sit down and I'm looking at their final number on the what do we call it? The settlement statement. On the settlement statement, I want to know why am I $50 off? That's me. Because I've worked these numbers forward, backwards. I've done that. I take great pride in figuring out what that net to seller is, because when you go and talk with the seller, what do they want to know? How much they're going to make? Do they really truly care about what you're gonna do to sell the property? Maybe eventually, but what they want to know is, how much am I gonna make after all the fees and everything are done, right? What am I gonna make? So if you are not doing a net to seller and meeting with your clients, your seller clients, you are making a huge mistake. And here's why. Because I think other agents don't do that. I think, one, they're not comfortable with it. So I think that you really need to get good at mastering what your net to seller is. Here's what I say. General rule of thumb in selling a property. You got somebody that's just bugging me, like, what do you think? What do you think? I say 8.5%. Now, what we know in this room, and that'll be posted on the YouTube channel, is that when I look at that 8.5%, that is counting what? What does that include? Do you have any idea?
Title, buyer commission.
Title fee, buyer commission, listing fees. Yeah, so when we look at that calculation, this is gonna be based on, well, that's what, and I can't even use the word standard, but what has been known in industry prior to having the lawsuit and all of that, is that is what that 8.5% is calculated on. So when you look at that, and this is where you have to be able to have conversation around this, is the majority of that 8.5% is the cost for commission. So you have to be able to have conversation around that, right? And show your value in that. And then pro tips to stand out in the listing appointment. So what is a CMA? What is, let's define it. What is it?
Comparables to the target listing.
Subject.
subject property,
What sold
okay?
the last is it 60 days?
And that is changing, right? Sometimes, again, it depends on when there's been a sale. Yeah, 60 days, 3 to 6 months. Guys, I can remember in this market where we looked 2 years back.
That's maybe.
You look 2 years back today, you're outpricing yourself.
Was the MLS default for a whole year, right?
I think that it does, yes. And you know that you could go in and make any changes to any of those settings, right? Yeah. So it is an evaluation of similar recently sold homes in the same area to determine that competitive listing price is what it is. So the challenge in this, and this was my conversation with them, when I went in and looked at those numbers, there isn't anything that's sold in that general vicinity in 25. The last sale was December 16th. And it was an estate property. It was the second one down on the solds, which we'll get into in just a minute. But there has not been a sale in that neighborhood. So here's what I say, let's set the bar. What are we gonna do to make your property stand out, right? Now, again, I've got some other things comparable wise that gives me the confidence in saying those kind of things, like let's set the bar high. But we know that she doesn't want to deal, we don't want to deal with sitting on the market a long time. We don't want to deal with reducing the property. We want to price it in a way that's going to get activity to have multiple offers. That's when you, as the seller, get to pick who you're going to work with. You get to pick the lender, you get to pick the terms, you get to pick the condition or the you know, what they're going to receive the condition of the property in. You get to pick all those things, right? So, and the purpose of that is that it helps the agent, you and the seller to price the home accurately to attract buyers and to maximize your value. That's why you do it. And I tell you, this is the information that you want to know. It's just like, I couldn't remember exactly what the date was, but I tell you, when I was talking with Courtney on Monday, I could say to her, you know, the last time that there was a sale in that neighborhood was in December 16th. When you use numbers like that and you're very specific in that, it's because I've poured over these numbers. I've looked at them forwards, backwards, I've done all that. I've gone in and I've looked at the pictures interiorly. And so that's, I'm going to show you that too, because I'm going to show you how I did this. So here's the key components of a CMA, right? Recently sold. That's going to be the most important. Active listings will play a role in this. Pending sales also play a role in this. Expired and withdrawals, not so much right now in this market because we haven't had a lot of that. We haven't had a lot of that. Adjustments for differences, square footage, condition, location, upgrades, floor plans, things like that. One of the things that is, I want to say troublesome, is we are only a 1 bath. The majority of the other homes that have sold in 24 have 2. Now, the good thing is that her bath is really nice and it's been updated. Her kitchen also has been updated. So again, when I start thinking about what this particular home is, being a 3-bedroom, 1 bath, it is updated in other parts. And I'm thinking that a person that would be moving in or considering that home is probably going to be, what are my demographics going to be for this is a ranch slab, Westerville, 2-car garage. We do have that. There's some that only have 1 and there's others that have no garage. So what do you think my demographics are going to look like for that kind of a purchase? Yeah.
I want that single level.
Yeah, older, somebody downsizing maybe,
Downsizing
Yeah.
or Empty nester.
empty nester, yep.
This would be someone like Courtney.
Somebody like Courtney, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, first time home buyer.
First time home buyer, yep. Isn't it crazy to think that first time home buyers are looking at 350 for their first home. I mean, that just is, and by the way, I can remember, and maybe Blair too, being in this market as long as she has looking for sale by owners. I can remember when these homes sold 89,000. So it's hard, it's hard, it's an adjustment to walk into properties like this today and to think, oh gosh, like what? Like there's one on there that sold for $412,000. And I'm thinking, are you kidding me? It was listed for $415. It was on the market 4 days and it went out at $412. And I'm thinking, holy cow, $412. I will tell you that in these components, the most important is gonna be the solds, right? But still, understand how you're gonna use these other things, like an active listing. Would it be beneficial or important for you to, if you see another listing on there that's been sitting there for 32 days, do you think it would be beneficial for you to pick the phone up and call that listing agent?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. What are some of the questions that you would ask a listing agent like that? Yeah, what's your activity been like? Have you received any offers? And again, depending on how good you get at asking these questions, sometimes they'll tell you information, sometimes they won't, right? It depends on how you approach it. We say we want to be agents in this business. So it's like you dealing with them like you would want to deal with and how you would handle. Yeah, Priscilla.
Quick question, how would you go about getting comps or CMA for a property that doesn't have anything sold around it, anything active? I had a house in London who I was trying to get comps for, but their new build was built in 2022.
Yep.
So nobody has sold around him, and so how would you go about that?
Is this behind the Walmart out there?
No, it's kind of like when you go to the highway.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, because
Actually, no, you know what, it might be around.
Yeah,
Walmart.
because there is new back there, and I bought and sold in there too. So sometimes that's when you have to go back, right? So you maybe have to adjust your timing on that and go back and look and call the builder. What are you building these for today? This is what I have, right? So at this point, what you're doing is you are gathering information. You are being a private investigator. You're trying to find out as much information about this property. So when you have something like that, or I thought you were gonna go in a different direction, I would think that a new build would be easier to price than a farm
Yeah.
sitting out with, and I'll tell you that there are times where we have called and said, I think what we need to do is have an appraisal done. Now, understand that an appraisal is one individual's thought on what the valuation of that property is on that particular day, right? It doesn't mean that that's gonna be the same 3 months from now,
Now,
6
could
months
you
from
pull,
now.
like comps in the area of like maybe sold when that was built and just see what the percentage of price increase has been and kind of compare it to that and say, well, back then houses were selling for this, now they're selling for this. If we were going to the same price square footage, then maybe let's do
Absolutely.
50% higher because. or set that
Absolutely,
bar.
or you go into another great place, and again, this becomes a little more challenging when you're using county records that are not Franklin. I'm gonna tell you, Franklin County is the greatest website from a county auditor. It's so user friendly as opposed to you start getting out Licking, London, right? Blair, you agree? My gosh, we could do that with our eyes closed because it's so easy to find that information.
Yeah.
Like, and you go in and find out the valuation. So in fact, if you guys look at this very top page here, and that's one of the reasons why when I'm gathering the information, I know, and whether Courtney was my client or not, I go in here and I know what the most recent transfer was. I know that in 2019, what she paid for it, right? Not that that has any correlation, especially in today's market, with what she paid for it and bought it for. But if you were one to go back and do the calculations, and I'm just gonna tell you, I am not a numbers person like that. But if you had somebody that was really good at numbers, you could go back and see how inflation, how rates have changed, what they've done, and how you could go in and do that kind of a calculation to come up with that. And sometimes I'm gonna tell you, sometimes it's an educated guess. Now, sometimes too, you'll lose things because of that. I did, a couple weeks ago, I went out on a listing appointment and I priced it like 40,000 less than what they actually listed it for. Like, oh dang, it was a great house. They listed it and I thought, oh, it's gonna sit there. Nope, went in contract just like that. And I'm like, damn, I missed it. How did I miss it by that much, right? Again, this is something that I've said recently. The market will correct it if you underprice it. And in fact, I would rather err on that side because somebody will drive the price up as opposed to, I thought that where they listed that it would sit and it didn't. And I think that that's because of what it was, where it was, how much land it was sitting on, right? So sometimes you lose those that way.
I've been showing a lot of property lately and I feel like, I don't know if it's the market or agents, but like there's a lot of what I've been calling like soft listing prices.
Mhm.
Where they're just like, oh my gosh, this seems really like a great price, and it's because it absolutely is,
Right.
and then multiple offers are hitting and.
Correct.
Yeah,
Right.
it's crazy.
And again, you wanna find out the motivation of your seller. I mean, if your seller's like, nope, I'm sitting on my price, then that may be one story, as opposed to if you've got somebody who's like, no, I want out of here. I wanna be out of here in 30 days. That may be a different reason to price the home differently, right? But if you look at, I wanna point this out because I think that this is important. On the sheet from the county auditor, it's a front and back sheet. It should have been the very first one on your stack there. Your 2024 auditor's appraised value, I'm gonna tell you, listen. Franklin County and all counties, I think, have struggled forever and probably will forever struggle at what an appraised value of a property is, because what is the market value of a property? How do we determine that truly? What do we say?
But somebody's willing to pay.
That's exactly right. What a ready, willing, and able buyer is willing to pay for it. And if you don't think that you get a house on the market, and guess what? The daughter lives 2 doors down, is that home gonna be more valuable to the next person that's coming through? Yep, it is. And would that mother be willing to pay more money to be 2 doors down from her daughter than what you would pay going into it? Yep. So we don't always know exactly what the fair market value is, because we don't know who we're gonna be dealing with. But this gives you some sort of an idea, right, as to how out of alignment it is. So the 2024 auditor's appraised value is 235,700 on this particular home that we're talking about, that I had that appointment with. Which gives me some insight, but when we're talking about not having valuations for property, or Priscilla, if we're talking about things that are new build, sometimes what I do is I go in and I'm clicking on property, because you can go in and look at the map and then click on, well, okay, I wanna know what the value is of this one, and what's the value of this one and across the street. So sometimes it's gathering the information that way, or maybe too in Realist, which is another connection in our MLS, right? You can go in and find a lot of information out about a property. That also gives you neighbors in a very quick look. It'll allow you to look and to see what has sold neighbor wise most recently, or what did the neighbor sell, even though it was 2 years ago. Oh my gosh, they paid this amount, right? That's an easy way also to get valuations. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes you're just guessing. You're guessing. So here's the steps in creating a CMA. You're gonna gather that subject property details. And again, when I go out on a listing appointment and preparing that CMA, I'm doing my realist stuff. I'm learning everything I can about that property, and I'm confirming that with the sellers, because what we also know is all the information that you see in county records, and even sometimes in MLS, it's not accurate. Right? It's not accurate. Sometimes it's the data entry that took place. Selecting your comparable properties, that's where it's a matter of going in and looking at pictures and looking and seeing, is this similar to what I have here, or, oh my gosh, is this awful, right? Yeah, Rachel.
I've heard a lot of agents also will go off of, price per square foot.
Yeah.
What are
And I think that is something, I have not done that, and I mean, there is a way to look at it, and the MLS calculates that for us. That is one way, and that's one way to do an appraisal. Appraisers will do that particular, you guys remember being in classes in school when you were getting ready to pass the test. They base things calculated on square footage. I don't and have not priced it. That may be something that I check it with to see, okay, am I totally out of alignment here? Or do you have a seller that is totally out of alignment and you need that square footage to reel them back in and say, yeah, look, if you look at square footage based on other sales, this is what you have square footage wise, and this is the range where we really should be and not over here, right? So sometimes it would be something that would allow you to reel that seller back in on their property, right?
But is the suggestion that that's not the right way to do it?
It's just something that's not customary for this part of the country. I think that there are probably other parts of the country that do it that way. It's just not anything that I've experienced here in the 30 years of being in the market. That we price it square footage wise. It is a way to do it, right?
And if you look at this, they're so different.
Right?
Yeah, it's like,
They're so different. That's right.
because it depends on what the upgrades.
It does. It absolutely does.
Layout.
And what somebody's willing to pay for it. Again, and I'm gonna show you an example of this, because I was on the phone with her when I was looking and going through some of these, and then I sent those to her after we had the conversation, because I wanted to educate her first and find out what they're thinking, and then I sent, making the necessary adjustments, like the condition, things like that. Are there wonky things that they have in the home, right? The competitive price range, again, that's you going in, and here's the other thing, I have not used this at a high level, but you also can go in through showing time, you know that there's reports that you can look at in showing time, put your price point in there and it will tell you, do you have insight on this?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I used it one time. I had a listing in Uptown Westerville. And they really wanted to list it for 100, and I pulled that report out and it showed them that they would get twice as many showings if they took it down into 390s. And they did, and then we had multiple offers and we closed over 4.
Excellent.
So
So it's more information that you can gather by creating the reports through showing time that will show you in this area, homes that have been priced at this amount have received this many showings. Homes that are priced in the 400s have not received the showings and they've sat on the market. So again, that's great information to share, especially if, as you learn who your client is, if they're a numbers person, they'll eat stuff like that up all day long.
I think it's called activity on comparables report.
Yeah,
it's the very bottom.
the very bottom. Yeah. Presenting your findings in a professional report. Now, I'm gonna tell you, what I provided for a quick look, that's not a professional report as far as I'm concerned. It's just not. There are a lot of different programs out there that you can do. I don't use them. I'm just gonna tell you, I don't. I keep it simple. Simple, simple, simple. And what I highlighted, that's what I do. I'm gonna show you other things that I do that I did not include in here.
Can you at some point pass around your highlighted version so we can see what you're highlighting?
Sure. Yeah,
Hey Jill.
yeah,
I have to run out.
yes.
but If anyone's interested in a tax due date card with the conveyance fees for all the local counties, they're right here, grab it on your way out. And it has my contact information in case you'd like to set up a meeting.
Which you need to do, by the way, you need to meet with Blair. Do you guys know what a conveyance tax is?
Conveyance fees, which is a transfer fee. It's on the settlement statement, and it's a fee the county charges per $1,000 of the sale price at closing. So it's like basically another way the government gets money.
Yeah, it is. It's a sales tax. And so what's interesting is that the different counties, like Franklin is 3, Fairfield is 4, Union is 4, Delaware's still only 3? I thought that they were 4. So anyway, with this too, what's nice, because here's the tax calculation can be something that can really booger up your net to seller. I'm just gonna tell you, this is why you've got to know this information so that when you're explaining this to your seller, it's accurate. It's accurate.
So transfer fee and conveyance fee are synonymous and.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, the nice thing about doing your net to seller with, and I've used Talons forever because that's where I started. It was Chicago Title back in the day, and I've just always done that. Every title company will have a net to seller. I think Talons is the easiest to go in and to calculate your numbers. I mean, you put the information in, it calculates it for you, right? And so even with the counties, you're selecting the county, so you don't have to think, okay, wait, this one's 4 because it's in Union County. You don't have to do any of that.
Yes, but make sure that when you start the net sheet, there's a drop down, it automatically defaults to Franklin, so
Yeah.
change it if it's not Franklin County.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
and if anyone needs a follow-up refresher at a later date on what she shows you with the net seller calculator, I'd love to help. So,
Thanks, Blair.
thank you,
for
Barbara.
hanging out.
Have a great class.
So again, remember, you have to know your sellers and what their experience has been. I mean, you need to educate your seller on your pricing strategy and what that looks like. Your market-driven pricing, avoiding the emotional pricing, which is what you're dealing with most times with sellers. Because what do sellers always think? Why is it worth more? Because it's mine. My house is better than Betty's down the street, right? My house, oh, my house is so much better, right? So that's that avoiding that emotional pricing. The danger of overpricing leads you to longer days on the market and then doing price reductions. Here's something I'll tell you. If you, I wish that I would have done this now on the one that I lost a couple weeks ago. I wish that I would have said, okay, if this is your price and you want to list it let's list it here. And if it does not go into contract within the first 20 days, then here, I want you to sign this right here, that at that time, if we're sitting 20 days or more on the market or whatever you come up with, day-wise, we're gonna do a price reduction to where I think that it should be priced at. I wish that I would have done that with that. Maybe I would have been able to retain it, right? But they actually told me that the agent that they chose, which is not a Keller Williams agent, but the agent that they chose was paying for their staging, and I call BS on them. I'm thinking any agent that's willing to lay out $4,000 for staging must really be desperate, right? I don't know. Sometimes those are the best ones to walk away from, right?
Actual staging or virtual staging?
No, actual staging.
The whole house?
Yes.
Whoa,
I'm like, seriously? No. And that's what they told me why they went with that agent.
I see.
Cause I kept pestering him. I wanted to know why.
No.
I didn't know. I mean, after I had gotten the communication from him, then they listed it after that. It wasn't that it was listed and then I went after it, because we don't do that, right? You don't cross that line. Because now they're working with somebody else, but I kept wanting to know, hey, like, what's going on? Like, I've got my stager lined up, we're gonna get, because that's something that I provide for my sellers, not staging the house, the consultation of that, and then them getting the ideas of what they need to do. If they then choose to hire the stager in addition, that's on them, not me. Right? Buyer psychology, listen to this, this is huge too. The pricing thresholds of using $399.9 versus $405, it looks so different in the market. Or here's what I say, even, when you look at $399.9 or $400, right? So let's say, how can you search, and how are people setting up searches?
Up to 350, 450.
Right. So just think about that when you're pricing like this. I mean, like this, if you've got somebody, if you're pricing at 405, maybe you're missing all those people that are 400 is their max. Right? So again, it's It's educating the seller on that and having that conversation, supply and demand impact. I mean, gosh, we've been dealing with that for a long time in our Columbus market, and we're gonna continue to do that. Gonna continue. Mastering your net to seller sheet, helping sellers understand the financial breakdown. That's the whole reason why you're there. So you make sure that you do that. You're dealing with the sales price, mortgage payoff, closing costs, commissions, taxes, fees, and then what their estimated proceeds. Now, here's what I'm gonna tell you. Here's the greatest challenge in that is the taxes, figuring out the taxes, and then also what they owe on their property. So they will give you, I'll say, what do you owe on your mortgage? Do you have a mortgage? Do you have a second? Do you guys know what a HELOC is? It's like a home equity line of credit. Did you put windows? Do you have a second loan for that? I mean, these are all the kind of questions that really you want to know before you go out and meet with them, right? However, I have done two-step net to sellers because maybe they don't know, or they don't get it to me in time to do that, which I didn't in this case in doing that with her. I did it without the payoff. But the payoff number that they usually will give you, a seller will usually give you, is not the actual payoff. It is actually the principal balance, because that's what's on their statement. A payoff balance is going to include that interest, right? So think about this. When somebody buys a home, like if they close in March, when is their first payment?
Like April or May.
May. But what are they still paying? Interest, right? So think about when you then go to sell, you have that interest that needs to be added. So I think that it's helpful if they have a statement that they can provide you. You then, as the agent, can go in and say, okay, I see here, this is what the principal is, the taxes, the insurance, and then I can calculate that based on, okay, if we're pricing this out to be 60 days, I'm gonna add 2 months interest, and my payoff amount is gonna be more accurate than it is of them just telling me whatever they tell me, which is usually the principal balance. And it doesn't calculate that. So that's where you'll find $50, $200, $300 difference, because they didn't tell you what that actual
get that?
payoff.
Can you get that from someone? Can you get that from their lender? Can you get that from title?
You can, but I don't know that it is that important. It's just when you're talking to them, you're gonna say, now understand that this is your principal balance. This isn't an actual payoff balance. And there will be a difference, and you can have that conversation with them as to how they calculate that. Typically, if you're asking for a payoff balance, you're paying for it, because the title company is going to request that at the time that they're doing their paperwork and getting ready for closing. There's a fee, and then that fee gets tacked onto. And so see, that again is something that goes on to their statement, like $25, $50, whatever that is. I'm not that crazy about doing it, but sometimes I'll put in just a little bit more to cover those little things, right? So again, all of these little fees, right, can add up.
Do you have a question?
Yeah.
I've heard that, so with net to sellers, I heard this at a class, and I can't remember what class, but they said that just to tell the client that this is just an estimation, again, because there's so many unknown fees. It's just an estimation. And then the other thing that I've heard is where you could also reach out to title, and if you have the information, they should be doing the net to seller. That was
Title?
told to me by an agent, where we shouldn't be doing them. It should be more, like, if you have that relationship with title, you should let them do the net to seller.
Yeah.
Instead of you doing the net to seller, because of all the fees that are involved, that with newer agents, they may not know
Right.
what fees are involved with it.
Well,
So
this is what's so great about that, Belen, is that when you go in, and I'll tell you, any title company has that net to seller that has those fees already in there. I'm not going in and saying, okay, let's see, Talon is for a search is this amount, and Northwest is this amount.
Right.
Where am I sending? I'm not doing any of that. And that's why I'm saying, and you're right, you do use the wording estimated net proceeds, because it is not exact, right? It's not exact.
Right.
But again, if you're working with title, I guarantee you, she is absolutely willing to do net seller for you.
Yeah,
Anybody would be.
I use
I'll do
Talent too, and I think it's very
Yeah.
simple and
Yeah.
user friendly, but.
Yeah.
I
It is, but
know-
here's what I'll say, the more you do them, the more comfortable you become. And it's just like explaining, hey, how many of you feel completely different about explaining the buyer representation agreement now that we didn't 6 months ago? Right? You're doing it, or you should be, you should be explaining it like that. You'll feel the same way about net to sellers. And again, I know that my experience and what I've done back in the day gives me more insight into that, because I think about, here's the other thing, title insurance. Title insurance is a whole other thing, right? That's based on per thousand. That's why you use the net. I'm telling you right now, you guys see like this is why agents don't do it. And this is why when you go and you have one, that's a good thing. It's a very, very, very good thing. Yeah, so you gotta get good at doing it. Again, it's another level of the service that you're providing. Setting realistic expectations. So explaining those expenses up front. I mean, especially when you're dealing with sellers that have not sold property, they don't have any idea, or I'll guarantee you they've forgotten that, oh, yeah, there's title insurance, and oh, if you've sold less than 10 years, there's a reissue rate. They get money back, right? That's calculated on there. So again, on the net to seller, it says, have you owned the property less than 10 years? Check the box, and then you put what the purchase price is, and then it calculates that for you. I'm not figuring out that calculation. Dealing with potential price negotiations, discuss the impact of repairs and concessions, offering different pricing scenarios. Again, here's what I'm gonna tell you guys, the time to have these conversations is when you're sitting with them at their table, not after the fact. Now, when I am receiving offers on any listings that I have, I'm doing a net to seller. I'm preparing a net to seller. So if I get 4 offers on a property, I'm doing a net to seller for every single offer that I have, right? It gives them clarity, and that's what you want. You want to give them clarity. And here are some things that you can do just to kind of stand out, right? Your professional CMA reports with visuals. Do it. Use storytelling strategy to explain pricing. I cannot tell you how many times I've told stories in listing appointments that give, and this is why you come to classes, because you hear things and then you learn things that you take to other places that you tell. Storytelling is a great way in which to be able to explain pricing strategy, how it works. Again, in my mind, I don't know that I want to say, oh, well, I lost the listing because I wouldn't do it, but that for me is something that I use in my mind. It's like, okay, if I'm sitting there and they're really thinking this price, what's going to come back to me is that situation that I had with that. Show real examples of well-priced versus overpriced homes. That's what you're doing on that CMA, that one-line CMA that we're going to get into in just a minute. Customizing that net to seller, getting really specific, right?
Do you ever ask them over the phone what they think their price is? Or,
Yes.
Before
Yeah.
you even go?
Yeah, I've done that. Absolutely. I even had, one time when I was there going over numbers, I had, they had, a little sticky notepad, and I ripped them off and I gave them each one. I said, here, well, I want you to write down what you think your house is gonna sell for. And again, I knew what I thought it would sell for. And so I did the same thing. And I collected them, and then I put it in the back of the folder. And then at the end of our meeting, they were blown away by what they thought, I thought I could sell their home for. I mean, they were like $40,000 less, right? And again, this is somebody that has not sold, that they've been in their home for like 40 years, right? So had no idea. And so that was also a story that came with a lot of things that happened. Like if you think you get an offer before an open house and you want to cancel the open house, or the buyer wants you to cancel the open house, you're like, no, we're gonna wait. and you don't get any other offers, and then they resubmit the offer to you, and it's 20,000 less than what they sent you the night before, that's a learning lesson. And I'll tell you that that is something that I use in listing appointments all the time. It's storytelling, right? And I understand that that comes with experience. But I tell you guys, when you come to these classes, these are the things that you hear, and that's what you then take with you.
And you could use those stories.
And you use those stories. You don't have to say, well, a colleague, it's like, let me tell you a story about a listing. And you use that. They're not gonna, that's not yours. They're not gonna think that, right? You're coming with information. Boy. You have to leave, okay?
I'm so sorry, yeah.
We're gonna get, now we're gonna get into the nuts and bolts, but then I just wanna say, you guys, I'm so proud of you for coming and investing in your own business, because I guarantee you.
Was that the
your
end?
That's it, now we're gonna get into actually
Oh, the
doing
good
it.
stuff?
Yeah.
Heard it, okay.
So, but it's being recorded, Rachel.
Yeah. At that point, yes.
Your clients
Thank
are
you.
going to thank you for the diligence that you put into creating the market analysis and doing the net to seller, I'm telling you. So I'm going to get out of here.
I have one quick.
Yeah,
question.
tell me questions. What
So
questions do you have?
this is really good for me because I'm actually going to go talk to somebody about a listing tonight.
Okay,
And I pulled up the former MLS listing and I compared it to what's on the auditor's site, and I found a difference of 400 square feet.
yes.
Auditor says 27 and the listing says 31.
Okay. Did that include your area total floor living space, which is your ATFLS on the MLS?
Correct.
Okay.
The basement is not finished.
Okay.
So I don't know where that 400 is coming from, except that they have a 3-season room, and I'm wondering if that's.
Probably, yes. So, to answer that a couple of different ways, yes. When I say about being a private investigator on your listings, I always pull things up in the MLS first. Always, always, always. Because in that, you may find things about the property. It's like, oh, whoa, wait, it's showing this. What is actual? You can actually get the actual in the photography. That's of course, if you get the listing, right? Then you do those floor plans and it's gonna show you the dimensions and it'll show you the square footage. That's one great thing that photography is doing today that it hasn't done before. So that's something that you pay. Of course, it's an a la carte that you have your professional photography, if you're gonna have drone, if you're gonna have an agent intro video, if you're gonna have floor plan, if you're gonna have, what do they call the twilight, where the sky's purple and, the lighting, the house is like lit up. So all these things are in addition.
I know we're talking about listings, but when I'm taking a buyer to go see a home, I also look at the prior listing because sometimes you'll find stuff that's not disclosed in the current listing for the current RPD.
Correct. Or you learn that, oh my gosh, they put a roof on in 2016 and it's not mentioned anywhere in this listing, which is a mistake
Or
of
they
that.
had a full basement flood or something.
Correct, something, absolutely, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I'll tell you guys that these CMAs, the things that I do for listings, I do that also for my buyers. I do a CMA for my buyer, and I'm not necessarily gonna sit down with them and go through like this, because most buyers will say, well, this is what we're comfortable doing, and if it's in alignment, then you do it, but I will tell you that there is opportunity also to use that as negotiation. Let me tell you a story about this one. This was a couple months ago. There was a house that was listed out in Delaware. And there was one that was in the neighborhood that was in contract, right? And my people kept saying that was the one we missed. That was the one we missed. It wasn't with me, it was just them watching online. So when my people said, yeah, this is really where we want to be, I then picked up the phone and I called the listing agent of the property that was in contract because it was listed $10,000 less than what the home was that we were looking at. And so she sang like a canary, I'm just gonna say. She told all kinds of information because of the questions that I asked. I said, hey, I noticed because I went into and I learned that she had sold not just one home in there, but another, right? And so when I called her, I hope people like this don't listen to the video, right? Because then they learn all these things that we do as agents. But I said, hey, I see that you're a preferred agent out in this area, that you've sold numerous homes out there. And what did she say? Oh, yeah, I have, right? So what does that do to her?
Her ego.
So I said, I'm just curious, can you share with me? I said, I know that you can't tell me what the home, I think sometimes when you lead with that too, it kind of gives them permission, yeah, I'm not gonna tell you. But I said, I know you can't tell me what the house is in contract for, but we are looking, I didn't tell her that we were looking at that home. I said, I'm just curious what your activity's been. Did you have multiple offers? Did you, because it was on the market like 32 days. And I'm thinking, so it can't be above list price, is what I'm thinking, sitting on the market 32 days. And she said, well, she says, well, we're really close. And I said, well, so what's going on with that? And she said, well, we're dealing with an appraisal issue. And I'm like, appraisal issue? She listed at 450, right? And so I said, really? She says, yeah. She says, and it's really ticking everybody off. And I said, what do you mean? Again, I'm listening, I'm inquiring, right? And she says, well, it's just such a ridiculous amount. And so what that says to me is, it's not much off of that, right? Because if you've got, and she said, the buyers are fighting for it, the buyer's agent's fighting for it, the seller's fighting for it. So it's like, I'm thinking to myself, we're talking probably less than $5,000 is what I'm thinking in my mind, right? Because of the conversation that we're having. And so she says to me finally, she says, you know, I've been meaning to call the other agent that has a listing here to tell him that we have appraisal issues. And I'm thinking, don't worry, I'll tell him, you know? And that's exactly what I did. They were listed at 460. And I called when I inquired back, I said, hey, my people really like this. I think we're gonna write. I said, I gotta tell you, so we're kind of concerned about the pricing. I said, you've got one sitting over there that's listed at 450. And I said, I'm hearing that they're having appraisal issues at 450. He said, oh, seriously? I said, yeah, she's been trying to get a hold of you. That's why I said, yeah. And I said, I don't know, maybe that would be something that would be interesting for your seller to know. I said, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send you an offer, sending it over at 450. And we're gonna not do an inspection, we're gonna not do all the things that the buyers chose not to do, right? So what do you think he did? Who did he call next?
The other agent.
No,
His
his clients, and said what?
The house on the street is having appraisal issues and I didn't want for 450, so you gotta work it out.
Yeah, without inspection, right? So what I did there is I used the same principle of CMAs to reverse it and use it for my buyer. I did the same thing, called the agent, asked questions, found that out. We went and contracted at 450. My people were thrilled that they didn't have to pay 460, right? And it's all because of starting with a CMA, knowing the numbers in the neighborhood and using that to the advantage of then having that conversation. It's just having conversation with people. It's not telling people what to do or what not to do. It's just suggestive, right? Okay, so you bring up a very, very good point that I always, the first thing if somebody's telling me about a property, the first thing I do is go in and look in the MLS. But if you can't find it in the MLS, sometimes I go to Zillow because amazingly enough, just the other day, somebody had called and said, hey, can you check on this property? And I go into the MLS, it's not here. I go back, I said, there's nothing here. I said, do you have an MLS number? Do you have something? She gives me an MLS number from 2023. Okay, 2020, and I know that because of the way the numbers work, right? So 225 is where we are right now. They haven't always done this, but 225 numbers are 2025 listings. 224, 24, 223. So I'm thinking, what is wrong with this house without even looking? So then I punch it in to the MLS with the MLS number and it comes up and it's canceled. So what do? I called the agent that had it listed at that time and he's like, I'm sorry, what are you calling about? Really rude. This is the don't be that kind of an agent, be an agent's agent, right? So he said, I'm sorry, can you tell me, like, I don't even remember this. And I'm like, yep, typical agent, right? We just, I was just grateful that he answered his phone. But anyway, I said, I'm just wondering if you can tell me the story, because it had not sold, it canceled. And so I gave him the address, and he's like, oh, let me look at it. He's like, oh, yeah, he's like, I remember this one. They were getting a divorce. And then she got a job promotion and she could afford to stay there without selling it, and so they didn't sell it. So he's kind of, I think he had it on the market like 24 days. So again, I'm thinking, okay, there's something there, there's a reason there why it didn't, so I found out the story, right? And so then I went back to the buyer and I said, my buyer, here's what I've learned. I said, do we want to send a letter to them to see if now maybe 2 years later they're ready to sell? I don't know, kids are 2 years older, don't know how old the kids were back then. So we didn't end up doing that, because she's like, no, because at that time in 23, it was priced out of their price range. But she was thinking that it'd been sitting there for 2 years, and that's what I'm thinking too. Okay, valuation has to be really off. So I go in and do my market analysis. It's like at the 415 that it was listed at 2 years ago, that's where it should be today.
How does she
Right.
find the property?
Okay, thank you for, yes. So it was on a competitor's website is active.
Oh, okay.
How? I don't know,
Because it was canceled, no one had.
Correct. but it was showing, and again, think about this, think about people, consumers do not know what they're doing, right? They're just clicking, they find a house that looks amazing in Pataskala, oh my gosh, this is our house. This is our house. To them, it's showing active. They don't know MLS numbers. They don't know those things, right? So I knew as soon as I couldn't pull it up, okay, something's not right. That's then when I sometimes will go to Zillow and see what they're doing, because sometimes things will come up there, right? So again, use that to your advantage. So first thing I'm doing, I am always going in and I'm using the MLS. So when I go in and do that, I see the last time that it had any sale was when she bought it. So I actually print this off because again, this was, what, 6 years ago? I can't believe that it's been 6 years. But when I go in, look at this, 182.9, it was on the market for 3 days. And she paid, what do you think she paid? Oh, you guys know what she paid for, because we already looked at that. She paid $185 in 2019. Now, hopefully you guys will see the point and the purpose in what we're doing here in the relationships. When in 2019, when I was showing her this property, market was pretty hot, not like it had been after that and what we've been experiencing current. But when you look at, I looked at this listing agent, I'm like, gosh, he's still in business? That's exactly what I thought. I called him, it was Father's Day weekend. And it was very interesting. He was, I don't want to deal with this weekend. I said, great, let me just write you an offer, Terry, and you just sign off on it, we'll be done. That's exactly what they did. Oh, because it was Father's Day weekend. His client, his seller was going into hospice care, right? So it was a situational thing. I would not have known that had I not picked up the phone and called Terry. Right? Again, that was another thing that came together like it did. Now you guys see one of the important reasons why we're always saying to you, you've got to network, you've got to get to know people. You've got to get to know people because of things like that. They don't all happen like that, but when they do, it's really nice, right? So I'm going in here, I find out when she did that, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna go to my Franklin County, and this is where I find everything out about the property, right? Tells me all this stuff. You guys have copies of this. This is what I do. I go in and I will go down and look at to see, oh, there's permits. Nope, she hasn't had any work done. Or she hasn't reported. That's a good point too. Yes. I knew that she wouldn't have just because of when she bought it. However, she did put a new roof on it. So that's good. I don't know why the mapping isn't working.
Can I ask a question about the number of
Please.
closed properties you have? You did 11.
Say again?
You did 11 closed properties here. Is there like a number, a typical number that you provided?
No, so let me show you, so again, I'm using, let me finish up this first and then I'll get to that point. When I'm going into the MLS. And I'm then clicking on my county, I'm getting all information, like I wanna know, if I didn't know this previous, if this is just somebody you're going out and doing a listing appointment on. It might be interesting to see the transfers that have taken place, right? Or going back and looking at taxes and payments, making sure that they're not delinquent on taxes. Or making sure that there's not any special assessments, or making sure that they're not in a homestead credit situation. You guys know what homestead credit is? Homestead is if you're a certain age, then you get a reduction on your taxes, which would then change what you need to report your tax being as a listing, because that's gonna more than likely go away. Right, so you can put it in, and you can then put it in your agent to agent. This is calculated on homestead, but actual taxes will be, and you can pick up the phone and call the auditor and ask them, without homestead taxes, I mean, it would be listed here, it would show you the annual credit, and then what you would do is just, you would put that back into what that is. Right, to come up with that, and that, I'm okay with doing that, I don't call the treasurer, the auditor, I'm not calling them to verify that, but I'm putting that in again. That's me providing value. When you have those kind of conversations with a seller, what are they thinking in their mind? She knows her stuff. That's right. That's what you want your clients to feel like, wow, I mean, she has not missed anything. And this is a system, guys. This is something that you just do with every single property, right? Here's the other thing too that I do, and this usually flips people out, more so with buyers. I don't know necessarily if this were a seller, and you can click on the sexual offender registration notification. So here's her property right here. If there was one sitting right here, would I want to have a conversation with her about that? That there, oh gosh, there's a sexual predator that lives next door. Would I want to have a conversation with my seller about that?
I would,
And why?
well, because the buyer's agent or the potential buyers could be looking at the same thing and the other agents doing.
Yeah, should be. I hope that they would be. Right. So again, this is me having that conversation before, as opposed to them sitting on the market and not getting, maybe that is a reason. Right? And so it's something that we've had a conversation about prior to, instead of not getting offers or getting an offer that's much less, or, you know, again, trying to figure out. So I always peek at that, or I do it for a buyer, because if I've got a buyer that they're buying a home, because a seller does not have to disclose this. If I were working with somebody, I would want to say, and this is something that I talk about in my buyer consultation, because again, every buyer, this is what they say. Oh my gosh, I had no idea we had to worry about that. Well, that's fine. That's what I'm doing. I'm looking out for you in doing that. So there's just little things that you can do throughout this process, right? So I'm going down that whole list and just looking at, and I'm printing some stuff too. Like here's the sketch. If you have no idea what the home looks like, you can go in and see what it's looked like over the course of many years, right? So then from that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you guys how I do it. And this is probably going to be like, wow, well, why wouldn't we just do it this way instead? So I'm going to go in, I'm going to do a quick search. I know where the property is, right? So I'm going to go into my status and it comes up coming soon, active, contingent escape, contingent. You guys know the difference of those?
Yes.
Okay. this could be another class, right? But these are classifications of the property, right? I'm also gonna go in, because I wanna know what's pending and what's closed as well. So it's gonna pull up all of those. So in that search, you saw that number jump drastically because that is all coming soon, all actives, all contingent with escapes, contingent lien holder, pending, and closed properties. 36,417. Not that that means anything to us, but you see how that number changed. I'm not gonna do anything else other than I'm gonna go to my map and I'm gonna find the property, which is challenging with all of the blue on here because it's pulling up all of that stuff. But I'm gonna go over here and get my bearings. And I'm gonna find my neighborhood. And I'm gonna go in, this is a Flex MLS training. I'm gonna go in. And I'm gonna pull up that community. So now I'm not dealing with a whole bunch, I'm dealing with 13. Yep, that's what I had, 13. And then look, it shows me because I know, again, I know the area. I know that these homes over here are different. These homes are different. I know that these homes in this community right here over to Brisbane, because the house is like here. I know that these are like similar properties. I know that once I go up here to Daleview, Fairdale, all that, the homes are much bigger. So I'm not going to include those in my mapping, right? So I go in and I get very specific, and I was thrilled to see 13. So I go in and now I'm clicking, because remember, I know what her property is, because I've done the research, refreshed myself with that knowledge. Now I'm going in and I'm looking at, oh, there's one that's contingent. Oh, there's one that's pending. And then here you see the closed. Like this one at 395 Naples does not have a garage. They converted it. Point View has 1, 2. So I'm just starting to identify the things. Oh, okay, yeah, these do all look like Huber homes. That's what this development is. It's a Huber community. And so because there were only 13 that I came up with, that's what I used as my print off, right? So I went to my CMA. I'm gonna go to my one line. That's what you guys have in front of you, is this. That's showing all that information. And again, you yourself can go in and change these things to be whatever you want. You can go in and modify it. I think that that's just standard stuff, even though you have list price versus selling your percentages. I mean, again, stuff doesn't need to be there. You can change whatever you want on here, but then it allows me to go in and then to start looking at which ones stand out. So you talked about Nicole, as to which ones. So the things that I highlight, so get out your CMA, this sheet right here. So I'm always highlighting and I'm educating them as to what they're looking at, because remember, they haven't done this, so they don't know. So the contingent properties, now if there was an active one for sale, that's gonna be at the top of the list, right? And I would highlight, so I'm highlighting contingent properties, I'm highlighting pending properties, I'm highlighting closed properties so that they can see the divisions of those, right? And then I'm going through based on what her property is and what these are, that's where I'm going in. And I feel like because, okay, this one is contingent, and then I find out it's a 3-bedroom, 1 full, 1 half bath, but only a 1-car garage. This is where you get into that, okay, what are the differences and identifying that? So we only have a 1 bath, but we have a 2-car garage. And I'll tell you from the idea of, again, this is where I go back to my demographics, somebody in that demographics that I'm thinking will be a whole lot more excited about a 2-car garage than they would maybe a half bath, right? Now, again, I'm not gonna necessarily say, yeah, but you only have a 1 one full bath as opposed to two, and there may be some price reflection in that, but again, what do we have going for us? Nothing has sold in there in 2025. You get people that be like, I don't care if there's only one bath, I don't care, this is where we wanna be, right? So again, I'm having that conversation with them and I'm identifying, so I come over here and I'm highlighting, because people that live in a neighborhood are gonna be like, and people argue about this all the time, husband and wives usually say, you know, it's the one on the corner over there that's been on the market for, they know their neighborhood, and that's why you have to know it too. Right? And sometimes that's, you get there early and you drive around, so you know, if you have to identify it, you can say, well, it's the one that has, like, you know, like the metal roof on it. Oh, yes, I know which one that is. Again, it makes you sound like you've really done your homework. Your pending properties, again, same thing, because these can give clues as to what, so this one's sitting here, I have to show this to you, because this is like, so if I go back to, this is what really. Remember, I'm sitting there on the phone with her having conversation. This is the pending one. Are you ready for this? Because I'm going in and I'm looking at photos, right? You ready? Thumbs. Oh. Oh.
The bed wasn't even made.
Right? Now I'm thinking to myself, now here, I'm not saying anything, but I'm here. This is where I go in and I'm like, seriously? You guys will get to this point where it's like, you look at this and you're like, this dude right here, doing them any favors. Right? That's why we have to be an option for people. Because you go in and you look at that, and I'm thinking it was originally listed at $319 and they reduced it to $312, but now it's in contract. And I would be shocked if it would go in at that. And I say this, I'm not, this is a training, so this is different than I would ever speak to a seller. Because this may be a medical situation. This could be somebody dealing with a death, and you've got kids that are like, oh, we are out of our mind. We don't know what to do with this. We're done. You know, and again, most buyers, just like the reaction, I heard you guys, you're kind of like gasp, like, oh, because most buyers cannot overcome this. And most buyers are not willing. Right? But you get investors all day long that will jump over something like that to get it. And especially when you look at the comps, there's something in there that sold for $412. Right? So there's a whole lot you can do with $100,000 if you had to pay that. So let me just show you the importance of pictures. So you see that one, how bad that is. Here's the one that actually sold for $412. Different? Big different. Now, her house is nice, but I don't know that it's that nice. Yeah. Maybe we might be able to convey that to where we could get really close, or again, this is the one that closed in December. Yeah, no, this one closed in August. November, so right Thanksgiving, this one closed. And it was on the market 4 days, right? So again, people want to buy this, not the previous one, right? But is it important? Because here's what, they know the neighborhood, but they don't know this information about the neighbors, or they don't know that information about the previous one that we just looked at. They're like, I had no idea, right? So this is you educating them. So my highlights on this sheet, even though the totality of the information of the 13 listings are listed here, I'm going through and I'm identifying which ones I feel are closest to them, or there's information in here that I want them to see. And I highlight the address, I highlight the days on market, and again, you have to tell them, because people are gonna say, what's DOM? You guys know what DOM is? Days on market, but you have to tell them that, right? You want to tell them that, because they don't know, but that's something that is certainly identified in our market. So you're educating them about that. So my highlights are gonna be the things that I think, either point something positively or negatively to their home, and I'm educating them. And then what I did even further that you guys have copies of is I went in and in the, let me see what your, so good, you went in and highlighted, let me see what your copies look like. This is the one you're working on for tonight. I just love that. So you can see the highlights a little bit, Nicole, see how they're like identified there, yeah. So what I did in there, and then if you look at the next pages, because I don't have that up here, but if you look at the following pages that I included in that, you can see, you've got to look really good, but I identified in the highlights things that would stand out, like this property, which is the 708. I don't know if that's in the right order as yours, maybe not. But in that 708, Birmingham, I went in and did, the original list price was $335, did the address, the totals is 3-bedroom, 2-bath. I highlighted the square footage, it's a 2-car garage, and then gorgeous hardwood floors throughout the living area of the home, good sized kitchen with stainless steel appliances overlooking a nice Eden. I highlighted all that, because I want them, that's what I want them to focus on. I don't want them, most people, if they're looking at a sheet like this, they're like, oh, I don't even know where to start. Like, where do I even look here, right? So I'm highlighting the things that I want them to see. Sellers have received multiple offers. I want them to see that. And then at the bottom here, it shows that it sold in May after being listed for 6 days. It actually closed at $355, which was $20,000 more than what it was listed. That's important information for them to have, right? Any questions about that? Good. So that's what I've done in all of these homes. I've gone in and highlighted the ones and only the ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What I typically try to do, the 7 is on here, but it was because of how I was explaining it to her. I wasn't sitting in front of her. I emailed this to her, so she had it in front of her. But I'm meeting with them. I am giving them this, and then I'm also going in and I'm giving them this because they have this copy here. But then I'm also, this is where I go into my print. Those of you that have been in my open houses, you know that I use this a lot too. I will go down here to my Tessera multiple photo flyer. And what I like about this is that it gives pictures of some of the inside too. And actually this one is a bad example because it's mostly exterior. But it gives them, or you can go in and you can do, and I've done this before too, and do this. And it looks a lot, when it's printed out, there's more on the page, so it's not teeny tiny like this. And if you're really trying to pinpoint a property saying, look, this is so similar to what your home is, I mean, look at the photos, you can see, or if their home isn't, if their home is like the 312, really looking bad, and you show them this one at 335, this will say, now it doesn't mean that we can't do this. Are you willing to do this to your home? Most times people will be like, no, we don't have the ability to do that. Okay, but let me show you that this is why this sold like it did in this story. So you're telling the story, right? So pictures are big when you're in front of people. But you don't have to overdo it. So that's why I'm usually dealing with this one right here. So I'm giving them the MLS printout with the things highlighted. And then the next page right behind it is gonna be like this. It's gonna show them just a glimpse of some of the interior photos. And then I'm also, if they desire to see the interior more, then I email it to them. So that then they can click and see all the photos. Right? What questions do you have at this point?
Is there a way, I don't think there is, but I'm curious, is there a way when you search on the MLS, is there a way to, of any of those fields, to find distressed properties or investor specials?
Sometimes you can go into the remarks section and go in and do a word search for investor specials or investors only, or, put in keywords and sometimes it'll pull up that way.
Sometimes just doing the new financing, the cash only as well can help something.
That's a great point,
Thank you,
James. Yeah,
James. Yeah, that's good.
yeah, that would give an indication.
Yeah,
Mhm. That good financing, the normal financing would be good for that, yeah. Okay, so in my mind then, when I'm looking, let me go back to. My CMA, so when I'm highlighting mine on my sheet, and again, remember, I've poured over these numbers, right? So I'm looking at my, this one at 300, because it kind of tells the story. It was listed at 3, it went out at 306, even though that was August, right? I'm still doing that. I selected that one because of this, a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. But no garage. Right? And that one went out at 306 back in August. So I selected that one, but only because it is a true 3-1. Okay, and then I also included this 739 Birmingham. It's a 322. But this told a story of what I'm setting her up for, not setting her up in a bad way, but educating her. It was listed at 275, so this OLP is original list price, and that also is on those sheets. It'll show you the original list price, it actually spells it out there, right? So it's a little easier for them to understand that than looking at this, right? But the original list price was that, when it went into contract, it was 275. Here's a breakdown of that square footage, if you've got somebody that's crazy about square footage numbers. And then here's the actual sales price. So it sold 50,000 more than what it was listed for. Right? And again, that one, I think that one told stories too about the photos in that. So it looks very similar, except, and if you look at this house, the one that we're looking at some point in time in the life of that home since 1972, somebody converted that garage into living space, which is the one I have, right? And then they put a 2-car behind it, right? So this is kind of the same. And so again, when I look at this, what does this tell us?
That's the one that sold for 50K more?
Yeah.
Hmm, okay.
Right? And that's probably, this red carpet is probably where the garage was, right? So it was like a finished, because look at the ceiling, right? Again, you have to be very intentional about what you're looking at here. Because these things give clues, and I realize that you can't see it so much here, but when you're at your computer and you're looking at this stuff, those little things matter. And you being able to point out this when you're talking about it, because you're coming across as knowing your information, right? Knowing your information. So yeah, this one went, and this was in August, right? No, this was March, so this was a year ago. A year ago today, exactly. A year ago today. And look, I mean, it's just not. Remember the 412 that we looked at? I mean, it's nice, it's clean, it needs updated. But that right there tells the story of how you have control of the pricing. So they listed it at $275, they got $50,000 more a year ago. So that's why it's like, okay, if that sold a year ago at $325, I'm starting to gather and making conclusions in my mind as to what we can do. So that was another one that I used. I also used 708. Birmingham. This one looks great. This one was listed at this is the one that was $335 and went for 20,000 more. Went $355. So again, little dated in the kitchen because of the countertops. Mine has granite, so I'm thinking, okay, that's an upgrade. It looks a little dated, because of furnishings, right? Guys, this is where staging can make a difference in what you actually receive for a home, because remember, as I said, when you looked at the property that was terrible, people can't vision outside of that. Same is true when you've staged a property or when you've used, and she's got really cute stuff here. So my stager will go and actually stage the property instead of her actually doing the report. She will take things in her home and then say, get rid of everything else. This is what you're gonna leave in the home, right? So you don't always have that opportunity to do that, but this is a perfect example of that. And although her home will show much better because of the finishes and stuff that were done in her home as opposed to that. So a year ago, this one sold at $355. And so even speaking this out loud to you guys, this may even have me thinking, if that sold for $355 a year ago, we may even be able to go a little higher than $350, which is what I was thinking originally, and then let the price drive up. Let the buyer drive the price up, not us, the seller. So that was one. We also used 316. So you guys see why it's important that you go through. This is a clean property, looks good, but there's something also to this sitting here like this. Maybe even at a minimum to virtually stage. Or to do a little bit of staging. Again, we don't know the circumstances, but this one was on the list also because it was listed at $350 and it went out at $360. And that was the end of May. And then the last one was the 209. Bombay, listed at $325. Again, I felt that it had very similar things like what she has, like she's got the glass closet door. She's got wood flooring and carpet. So this one just kind of, and this one was sitting again in August, went out at $330. So you see how I'm gathering like evidence, right? Yeah, Nicole.
In terms of adjusting for price up or down, is that just, I guess, based on experience of how much things cost, or is it the value of it today? I'm sure there's not a website where you can go to and say, add $15 per garage.
Well, hey, let me ask you this. What's ChatGPT say about it?
Okay.
I'm telling you, if you guys are not using that at a high level, you need to go in and say, this is the information that I have, and be as detailed as possible, say, but mine doesn't have this, or mine has this instead of, what do you perceive the value to be? I'm telling you guys, it is crazy what that's doing, but you're right, here's the challenge is, and especially now, because prices just seem so inflated and are so, you can't pinpoint it. That's where I think that it's very challenging to say, well, I don't know. I mean, you've only got one bath, so I think that somebody that has two baths could sell it for 10,000 more. I don't know that that's the case and that you can say that. I think way back when, you could say it a lot easier than what you can today. Because again, it's the perception of what a buyer's gonna pay for it. So now you see, okay, that where my numbers and how I've derived at that. So I'm thinking somewhere 350, 375 is what I'm thinking, price point. Now, you have to remember, as I opened this up, remember, we were talking, I gave you 2 net to sellers, which is what we're gonna go in and look at now. When she was talking to me originally, they told me that she has a buyer. Oh. Well, let's look at the one that is the single example. The single example. On a net to seller, I think this is true across the board. You can do more than one net to seller. I usually do a high and a low, right? Or if I don't have any idea, I feel safer about doing this because I could walk into that home, never knowing the people and be dealing with the true 12. That it's like you walk in and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to sell this. I certainly don't want to be handing them a net to seller that is between 350 and 375. Right? I'm not doing that. In fact, because when you deliver something like this to your people, what do they remember? She thinks I can get 375 out of it. Right? So I would retain that in my possession. And I would tell them when I get back to the office, I'm going to do a net to seller and I will send it to you. Or pull out your computer and adjust it there and send it to them. Right? Don't give them something that you think, oh, I don't want to give this to them because it's over. Don't do that. You're better off to walk out of there not giving it to them and revising it or creating it, emailing it to them and doing that. But I want you to know that I did 2 different. So when you look at the one that is the single example, what I did, because again, getting the appointment, I talked to them about the idea of if you have a buyer, then you can pay me a flat fee to do all the paperwork. And my flat fee to do something like that is 1%. So in this example, when I calculated thinking, okay, 350, if you're looking at commissions at 350, 350, that commission calculation is 21,000. So what I did, I backed that out a little more than that on the 325 example, and then I removed the commissions. So I only added in that my 1%, right? And so then again, talking the net at 314. Now again, I did not have her calculation of her payoff at the time, right? So when you're explaining that, if you do not have that, you say, so here's your net. If you were to sell it at 325, and if there were no agents involved, because she has the buyer herself, right? I'm educating her to what she brought to me. I will only charge you 1% to do all the paperwork, we'll get it to the title, we'll help schedule inspections. And again, when you're talking like that, she's like, whoa, she's like, yeah, I don't want, so she's seeing the value in, yeah, let me just pay you 1% if we're gonna do this, right? So I said 314, 654. Now, what you have to do is deduct your mortgage from that. Kind of takes you off the hook a little bit of calculating that actual mortgage amount. But she sees that 314, but okay, wait, I have to do the calculation of taking off my mortgage, right? So I say to her, now, if you want to experience the market, I said, you can experience the market, see what somebody will drive it up, and then offer this family buyer after we confirm financing and all of that, because again, you're laying the groundwork of them thinking, okay, this isn't just as easy as me saying, oh, I've got a buyer, somebody who's gonna buy my house. We gotta make sure that they're financeable, right? They can make that happen. So there's a lot of little steps in between there. But when you show them, you can experience the market, then maybe what you do is offer to that buyer, your family buyer, first right of refusal. You get somebody that writes an offer and says, hey, I'll pay you $375. And then you go back to that family member and say, look, here's what I have. I've got an offer, somebody's willing to pay me $375. Now, what I'm willing to do for you, because of who you are, can back that out. And here's what your number is. That's the $325. You tell somebody a story like that, and then you say, or you can experience the market at $375 and look at these numbers. And your net then is $345. What is the seller gonna do?
Experience.
They want to experience the market. That's right. And the solution that you provided of giving that other buyer first right of refusal is it fixes the emotional piece of that for them. Right? But here's what I said, when you go in and you're talking numbers, I said to her, I said, listen, I said, do you want that money in your pocket? Or do you want it laying on the table to give the equity to the buyers that are buying the house? I think you need to go to Virginia, don't you? That's what, having the knowledge of what her goals are and using that in what you're doing. Right? So. I don't know why this isn't working up here, because I wanted to show you, because you can go in. Oh, maybe that's why, because it kicked me out because we were off too long. Let's see. Because I want to show you in our remaining moments here. Thinking. Here we go. So as you create your estimates, you can save them all, right? So if I go in, let's just say I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna edit. So you see, this is the first page, right? This is where you're entering the information, property address, her name, street address, all of that. You're identifying what your county is, because why are we identifying the county?
Fees.
The conveyance taxes. So then you can go in here and see, you can do up to 3 different selling prices. And I actually gave them both of these that you guys have, just to look at that. You've got to come up with a closing date, because prorations are built on the taxes and the, well, it's primarily the taxes is based on your calculation of what your closing date is. So I'm just thinking, okay, we're at the end of March. Again, what did she say to me? She wants to do this quickly. So when she looks at this again, she's thinking to herself, I mean, we could do this by the end of April. Yeah, we could do this by the end of April if you wanted to do that. So that's what I put in there for that date. You can change it again. As you're receiving offers on your listing, I'm going in here and doing one for every offer that I get. So I'm going in here and I'm changing this, because you know how when you get offers, you get a week here, a week there, that's different, and that it does, it changes that proration ever so slightly, right? So I'm filling that in. Here's where I actually put in what her mortgage amount was when she shared it with me. Here's the taxes. Taxes are the most confusing thing to, let alone us figure out how to do it, but to explain it to somebody else. Okay, and sometimes I still have to go in and I do it, and then when I go back and I look at it, it's like I can reason that in my mind, because taxes are billed in arrears, right? So you're paying for the taxes after you've already had the benefit of living in the home, which is why at closing, the new buyer gets a credit for the taxes from the seller, because that tax bill is not yet due and payable. So the seller has to give the buyer that money, so that when that tax bill does come through, they pay it on behalf of the sellers, right? I know it doesn't make sense. But you click that it's either paid or not paid, and so the first half taxes are paid. And I'll show you how we check that. Here's that, is the prior policy within the last 10 years, meaning have they been in the home 10 years or less? If it's yes, then you click that box, and then you put the previous sales amount. Where are you finding what the previous sales amount is? Where are you finding it? Where?
Auditors?
The auditor's site, yes, remember it showed down there, the last transfer date was on that, and then how much they paid for it, that's what you're filling in there. Here's the commission opportunity that you can fill in. If there's any additional broker commission, this is if you're somebody that is, you're paying, you're having your client pay an upfront fee. I personally do not do that, I know that there are some agents that do that, that's where you can fill that in. Here's where your conveyance fee is figured out, and again, it's already calculated for you. And then your home warranty, I actually took the home warranty out, that's something else that is auto done in here. So I take that out and then put zeros in there. The gas line warranty and termite inspection, I don't know why those are still listed here, other than it used to be back in the day that if it was like a VA loan, the seller had to pay that termite, and so that was something that was found here. I don't know if it's just that they haven't removed that yet, but again, you can go in and change those values. Can you see how this stuff here is like grayed out? That's because we cannot change that.
Do you know when the recording will be available?
Check with Jessica.
Thank you.
So your title examination, so these are the set fees, and they're usually industry standard, so you're gonna find them very similar across the board. Whether you're, what title company you're at, right? But those are things you cannot go in and change those fees. They're already calculated. Let's say, and again, I haven't had this in a very long time, but let's say that your seller was going to pay $2,000 towards the buyer's closing costs. You could go in and add that here. And then you could add the amount here. Right, so you can add anything to it, or let's say that they were gonna pay off a roof. And you have to, if you clear it back out, like you guys saw me take that 2,000 out. If I just went back and I just tried to move on, it's gonna say that it's undefined, so you actually have to put a 0 in there. Okay, and that's just working it going. But let's say that they had on occasion, I've had somebody that was paying off some debt, maybe they were paying off a roof, or they were paying off windows, or they were gonna pay off a Discover card, or what if you had a divorce situation and you had a combined credit card that you were paying off and you wanted that to be calculated in, you could put that in there. You put anything you want in here, right? And then it will calculate for you when you hit your create and save your report. And then it comes up like this. You can print it, you can PDF it to yourself. And then again, when you're receiving offers, you just go in and edit for each offer that you get.
You do that on Talon's final website. Do you have your own software or do you use
Hers. Yeah.
She did that?
Yes, this is the reason for connecting with your title companies. That's one of the services that they provide for you. Yeah. Okay, tell me, we're a little bit over here. What questions do you have? What takeaways? Is your head spinning? Was this good information? Did you learn anything? Direct.
And this is one of the ones I want to talk to you. So I know you can go through the MLS and you use Zillow as one of them. What other services or ways can you find more information about the property?
Yeah, Realist is a great one. Googling the address is another one. I'm gonna say this, I haven't tried this yet, but put it in ChatGPT. What can you tell me about this? Right? Here's what I learned in a class recently that they said, get rid of Google, use ChatGPT. Because what this is gonna do is it's going to train ChatGPT to your specific searching language and all of that stuff. So that's what I've started doing, is instead of, and I'm trying to think, well, even to do this presentation. I said, okay, I'm teaching a class on CMAs and doing net to sellers. Can you come up with I wanna do a presentation. This is what it printed out for me. Slide 1 to slide 10. So if you guys now, if you were to look at this and you go back through my slides, this is what it is.
It's crazy because with ChatGPT, if you can even upload documents,
Yes.
and it remembers it. You can connect it with Canva and say, just make it for me, which could be what you did, I don't know.
My daughter
It's-
actually
It's
did it.
wild. Whenever you're doing things, if you're, since we're all KW, any decisions you're trying to make on like a new marketing thing, you can say, use Millionaire Real Estate Agent book by Gary Keller and it'll factor in everything in the
Yes.
book. It's crazy.
It is crazy. So start using it for everything that you do. Okay. See the things that you learn in classes. Mhm. Yeah. What else?
So if I try one of these, I can send it to you?
Yes, of course, of course. In fact, that's what I would love to do is I would, the mentees that I meet with, it's like, do like what we did a couple weeks ago. It's like, here's this property that we kept going back to and talking about. It's like, write an offer on that. And do all of your documentation that you would need to submit. So we'll do the same thing on the listing. It's like, okay, here's the property. I wanna do a listing on, I wanna do a CMA, and then let's sit down and let's go over it, talk about it. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you ever use like RPR for your CMAs?
I personally do not, but I know that there's a lot of people that do because there's a lot of great content in there. I think sometimes you just have to be very careful because it's gonna give you a valuation itself. And I don't know that I always trust that, and then you gotta figure out how to like recreate all that, and it's like, nope, that's why I'm just.
Well, I know, whenever I first started them, obviously everybody still gets comfortable with them. I know I didn't focus on those numbers because I referred that to like the Zillow estimate one, like, without the, human factor.
Mhm.
But then, I'm sorry, I forget your name, but, on there, talking about sliding the scale of it, I thought that's what helped me get comfortable in areas, since you could just take down one of the, it's like, there's three up or three down if it's superior or less than your subject property. And it
Yes.
does like estimated price adjustment, so.
And here's what I say about that, if that's what you wanna use, especially since you guys are all newer, and this is with the exception of Todd here. Come up with a program and learn how to use it at a high level. If RPR is what you like because of the presentation of it, then do it. And again, you have to know your people, because if you've got somebody that's an engineer and or if I'm dealing with somebody that's 65, 70 years old, I'm telling you, the simplicity of it is the way to go. But there's
I don't use
other
it
ways.
anymore. I do it the way you just showed,
Yeah.
but it was
Yeah.
just a great starter.
It's reliable.
Yeah.
What I do is reliable. I know that I don't have to re-verify the information or be challenged by what they're presenting. You guys, thank you so much for coming. I'm really impressed with the attendance. This was great. And,
Don't get prizes.
yes, you do. You do get prizes. Is that the only reason you came? No.
I mean.
Yes.
It helps,
It helps, yes, yes, I do. I have an agent here that has gifted a lot of things. So what I would say, you guys know how to get in touch with me. I have open signs. I have open Sunday, 1 to 3, blah, blah, blah. So tell me what you would like really love to have. And I will see what I have in my information and I'll gift it to you. Yeah, so reach out to me and tell me what you're looking for, what you really need, what would help
I
you
think
in
you
your
already
business.
gave it away.
I did,
I was looking at, I think it was our group meeting.
okay,
It says that they needed a lockbox.
uh-huh,
You came to the rest.
Yeah.
Like, that's the
Yeah.
one you gave away.
I've got, now, they're not super lock boxes, but they're combination lock boxes.